Are you sometimes struggling with helping your team understand how their contributions matter and how to be more productive? Well, stay tuned to the whole episode today because I'm going to be sharing 4 ways that you can be helping your senior living teams feel like they're contributing more and therefore becoming more productive. Hey, this is Parry, corporate energy expert, and today we're talking about contributions. How does your team contribute? Are their contributions up to your expectations? So let me tell you a little story about my son. So when he was about 13 years old, he loved baseball, just baseball all the time, out in the yard, catching, pitching, just loved going to the games. And we loved watching him excel at baseball. Well, then the next year, I think he was about 14 or so, like eighth grade, kind of lost it. No more interest in baseball. And we're like, what's going on? You're getting late to practice and you're not, fully participating. We thought you loved baseball. He's like, yeah, well, it's just not fair anymore. He said, the high school coaches are coming down and they're starting to like scout for the freshman team. And, our coaches are just putting their sons in and I don't get to play as much. And I just don't feel like, what I do matters. His contribution wasn't being recognized. And I know that happens in team sports and it's a lesson and we get used to it, but it also happens on our teams within our organizations. Somebody doesn't feel like their contributions matter, so they take a step back. It's like, well, I'm just not going to give as much if no one really sees what's going on. So I want to give you some ways that you can help your team understand that their contributions do matter. So the first thing, ask your team, hey, what contributions do you make and what do you feel is important that you do here? Because what you'll hear might be totally different than what you think they do. And especially when you have somebody in a caregiving role, some of those things aren't measurable. When I work with teams, we do something called a team contribution statement, where we come up with a list of things that they do that not everyone might recognize. So ask your team members, what do you contribute? We know you do X, Y, and Z, but what else? We really want to acknowledge what you do here. The second tip is update job descriptions. We've come through a pandemic and there's been a lot of things that have shifted and things look different, and sometimes job descriptions just don't align. Now, I'm going to have another video out there about why job descriptions shouldn't matter in a caregiving profession, but we need them because they do set some expectations for what is expected in a role, and our HR professionals need to understand what is being met and what isn't. So they are great for measuring some things, but go ahead, look at those job descriptions and see, is there something that needs to be updated? The third tip is be really clear about your expectations of somebody on your team. This is when we get into all kinds of confusion and personalities and tension and conflict when expectations aren't fully explained. One time I was working with someone and he tells a story about a senior living facility where someone was told they were going to be in charge of making salads and desserts in the food service area. And when she was done making salads and desserts, she stopped. She just stood around. And it's actually Aaron Fish of Trestle Hospitality who tells the story. So I want to give him credit for this. It's his story. But she stopped and people were going, why don't you step in? Why don't you do this? Do something else. Well, the expectations weren't clearly set. So we really have to clearly set what is involved. If you finish up your work, step in and help somebody else. Have those conversations, team huddles, whatever you might need to, even at your sales level or your regional level. What are the expectations that are expected? And then finally, and we probably don't do this quite often enough, acknowledge everybody. Acknowledge the contributions. There's so many things that people do throughout the day that they do just because they want to be doing a good job, or maybe they set an expectation for themselves. Really acknowledge when you see it. It can just be in passing. Hey, I saw how great you were with Mr. Jones today, or hey, I saw your team really is concentrating on that regulatory issue that we talked about at our last meeting, whatever it might be. We tend to really seek out the negative and acknowledge when things aren't going well. Think about what and how you could be implementing an acknowledgement type of campaign, even in your own role. How can I be acknowledging more? So those are 4 tips to help you, kind of remind you that there are a lot of contributions people are making around you all the time. When those contributions are acknowledged and we celebrate them and people clearly understand what's expected, productivity rises. People want to be doing more. They want to be part of that team that acknowledges that they are bringing gifts and a skill set that no one else is. So this is Kathy Parry, Corporate Energy Expert. Please subscribe to the channel, follow along. You can share these with your team. It's a great way to spark some conversation.